Welcome to the Spartan Up Podcast. I'm Kevin Paulus, Jackson Bast alongside Spartan Up Podcast for this week. A lot of sports to talk about. I want to start talking basketball. A big win. First win in the head coaching career of Taylor Jacobson as they get a win over Clark 77-66 on Saturday. That followed a loss to Columbia College on Wednesday, something like that. They lost by 27 to Columbia College, but pretty exciting day for women's basketball. Really good win over Clark.
Yeah, and, I know that Coach Jacobson had been knocking at the door. We really thought they were probably going to catch that first one against the U Tactics. Fortunately, a 2-loss game that we talked about last week, but she's able to get it done in that comeback victory over the Pride.
Yeah, and so they are now 1-3. They're 1-0 in the Heart of America. So they win the first ever women's basketball game in the Heart of America, which is exciting. And then tomorrow night, as we record this on Tuesday, tomorrow night they will host Culver Stockton for a 5:30 tip on the women's side, and then Grandview a noon start on Saturday. So that's what's up with women's basketball. Men's basketball, they're rolling. 5-0, 1-0 in the Heart. They get a big win over former conference foe, Columbia College, ranked number 22 in the country, a 10-point victory on Tuesday, Wednesday. And then they beat Clark over the weekend by 8. So Taylor Jarvis is it's doing really well. His team remade roster in year number 2 of his tenure here at Missouri IS. So they're fun to watch.
No, that was an exciting game, and that was another one that we were like, okay, Clark and Mobap were really, Missouri Baptist were, neck and neck the entire time, right? And then, we're kind of a little worried because Clark started taking the lead a little bit in that third quarter, but then the Spartans turned it on. Fortner, a whole bunch of Spartans making it all the way to the end of 4.
Absolutely. So they get the win by 8. And again, much like the women, they will host Culver Stockton tomorrow night around 7:30 will be first tip, and then Grandview on Saturday at about 2 o'clock. Men's and women's bowling, they were in Topeka, Kansas, a 2-day tournament, the NAIA Invitational. The men finished 5th and 9th. Day by day, and the women 4th and 6th. They will be back at it in St. Clair, Illinois, in the McHenry match games on Saturday. Let's talk football for a second. We're gonna save the last 2 sports, and there's a reason for that. We'll talk football. Big win over William Woods on Saturday, and a couple of I won't say record-breaking. One was record-breaking, but couple of great performances by the Spartans on Saturday in that big win over William Woods.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the record you're talking about, Lionel Banks finally crossing the threshold, 25 touchdown. No, he broke Chris Baldwin's record where he had 23 touchdowns the previous. Lionel finally able to knock it through, exceed that record to 25, and it is a record. And obviously Lionel been here for 4 years, big part of that, but that's not even the most exciting part of the weekend. That was the 4 total touchdowns for Jacob Jones. He had himself a weekend, Gavin.
Yeah, 182 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, and then rushed for 104 yards and 2 more touchdowns. He is the offensive player of the week in the final week of the regular season. So football ends their season 4-6 overall, and 3-3 in the Heart of America conference.
Yeah, I think that was actually the first. I think we did the research, and that was the first time that we had ever had a QB have a 100 game. And that's the thing that we get to talk about, and he's only in his sophomore year. So I'm excited to see what the rest of Jacob Jones' career might look like here at Missouri Baptist.
4 touchdowns in the game as well. I think that's a record for an MDU quarterback as well. Let's talk about some wrestling. Women, the women win 32-16 over William Woods in the duel. A couple of exciting matches there, Jackson, that I know you can't wait to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Maggie Ortman was kind of the star for me of that match. She trailed 4-0 at the break. Was able to wrestle back, end up with a 9-6 lead before capturing the fall. Logan Sumner doing what Logan Sumner does, gets the 10-0 tech here at the Petty SRC. And honestly, of course, a lot of the win on that one was due to the lack of people that William Woods has on their roster. But I will say that under the new coaching staff over at William Woods, they did look very well, very sharp. Ironman, they're both doing a fantastic job. Not gonna lie, to all the viewers out there, I did fanboy a little bit over one of their assistant coaches, Jaden Ironman. He was a 4-time All-American, 3 times for Mizzou, and then 1 time for the Hawkeyes. So it was a good match. The women handled business. Talia Reed got her first win in the Petty SRC. So of course, a lot to take in on that pub opener for them.
They get the win in the well. They had the weekend off, but they'll be at Mobile Friday and Saturday. Now let's talk men's wrestling. We'll talk it over with Caleb McElfresh after the break. But the men also win over William Woods, maybe a little closer than we wanted it to be, but 32-21, they get the victory.
No, and there were a lot of exciting matches. Obviously, Isaac. We had a much different lineup than we normally do. We didn't put a whole bunch of our starters in. Isaac Chrisman, he went out there, started the duel out for us, took the first fall, rattled it off. John Davis took that 6-5 win. Daryl Mills got a win at 141. We saw Jake Sin. That was a match I was really, really excited for. Unfortunately, even though he had the lead, he fell late in that match. Richardson Nichols, I've always talked about, is a instant classic. Every time those two step on the mat, it's an exciting one. 65, we got to see Schlesinger finally get a technical fall here at home for the Spartans, and I can't say for a fact that I know it's the first one, but I mean, that was a good one. And then there were a couple other matches that didn't necessarily go our way, but then we got quite the exciting win at heavyweight for Jared Volsich over. He's unranked, but he is a national qualifier for the Owls.
Yep, absolutely. So the men will be back at it this Saturday. He traveled to Georgia with a Lucha Open posted by Light University. So we'll have a chance to talk with Caleb about that in a minute or two. And I very believe Jackson has the big news on campus is women's volleyball, now 29-5. They are the Third America Conference Tournament champions in exciting fashion. The semifinal, they win over Mid-America Nazarene, 3-0, and then they eat Clark on Saturday, 3-1. It was just an exciting day on Saturday. You coupled that with men's and women's basketball leading it well. It was a good day to be a Spartan on Saturday.
And you gotta tip your hat to Coach Tom Montes and the girls over at Park. They made it an exciting atmosphere. Super good to see Nick Rule, the commissioner, able to make his I wouldn't call it his debut. I think he's been here once before, but no, that was exciting. And I know I talked to him. He definitely was very proud of how we gave the environment. We made that a Hart championship that he was very proud of. So awesome job by the girls. They handled business. They won in dominant fashion. They weren't able to get too swayed by emotions in that set. And then, late when they knew that they had it and they just kind of took the breather, even in the last couple points of that last set, started to go in favor of Park. They're like, look, we're one away. We just got to keep playing our game. And then they were able to come home with a victory.
The interesting thing, well, they were hoping to just, walk through that final. Park had other plans as Park won the first set. Like the ladies were down 1-0 and then won the next 3 sets in a row. So pretty good response by them when things didn't exactly go the way they planned out of the box.
Yeah. So like I said, all together, led of course by Gabby. She had 27 kills, and she's not too far from that record. I want to say she's within 20. I don't know for a fact. And then Alana Capella, 18 kills, blocks. Perini had 7. Gabby had 5, Cassie had 5. All around, we had a really good game. And then, honestly, in that first set, Julia Reese Pereira struggled a little bit, but she was able to find her groove and was a huge part of leading us to that Heart Championship.
So, next up for women's volleyball is the NAIA tournament, and they will host on Saturday night at 6 o'clock. They'll take on Dillard University. They're out of Louisiana, so if you're in the area, it's going to be a tough crowd because, everyone's going to be going home for Thanksgiving on Friday. So, if you're listening to this and you are around the St. Louis area or you just want to see some really good volleyball, 6 o'clock on Saturday night against Dillard University. So, did I miss anything? Any sports I'm missing?
I don't think so. I think you covered pretty much all of them.
If I did, then we'll hear about it. But tell you what, we'll go ahead and we will take a break. And when we come back, we'll visit with Caleb McElfresh. He's sitting right here, so I had to screw up his name, of course. But we'll do that after the break in just a moment on the Spartan Up Podcast. Back on the Spartan Up Podcast, now joined by head wrestling coach Caleb McElfresh. And Caleb, thanks for being with us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
It's weird to talk with you with a microphone here because we talk multiple times a day. Sometimes you won't leave me alone in my office, and now we're sitting here with microphones. So I don't know how this is going to be any different, but we'll see.
I'll just be quiet.
No, that does not make for a good podcast. So I want to start pretty general. I know this story, but I'd like for you to kind of tell it. How does someone go from being a GA to being a head wrestling coach in the span of, a couple of months?
That's just opportunity. To be honest, that's God just said, "Hey, here's an opportunity. I'm going to give you one." When a coach gets put on leave and they're just trying to figure out a way to get the team through the season, you got to look at what resources are close. I happen to be here, right place, right time. I wrestled in college at a sister school to MoBAP over there at Hannibal LaGrange. I knew the AMC well. I was already covering the team, so I already knew the athletes moderately well just from being their sports guy. So when all that kind of went down, Tom just is like, Dr. Tom was the AD at the time, is just like, "Hey, we need somebody.
Yeah,
are you willing?" And then Adam Sampson, who was the sports formation at the time, was like, "I need him too." So then I ended up just doing both, and it was a lot of work for that spring term, having to balance work and all the other sporting events on top of now traveling with the wrestling team. But from there, the guys liked it, and they basically told Dr. Tom when Dr. Tom took them to conference, because I didn't go to conference with them that year. I actually went to the high school state tournament coaching the high school team that I was still coaching. So really busy spring semester doing high school, college wrestling, and then also being an SID. But I guess the impact that I had on those guys in that short time was good. They told Dr. Tom, "Hey, we won't transfer out. We want to be here. And we really think Caleb is good for the job if that's the direction you want to head." And I guess it's the direction they went. So,
and you talk about someone that has run with an opportunity. That was 3 years ago now. And we've talked about this before. We went through, I think it was just a week ago, you and I went through the roster, and it's just those are the, what was it, 5 or 6 guys that you had when you started. Some of them weren't even wrestling, and now your roster is 152 or something. Is that where we're at now? So
I think we're around 51, but still a lot larger than the 5 that we had returning from that group that we inherited. So
yeah. And so talk about that process a little bit. How do you go from 5 to 51 in a short amount of time, and keep it competitive as well? It's been a challenge for you, obviously.
Yeah, just staying on it. Hard work gets results, and it's not like I go home and just go to bed. Most of the time I go home and it's phone calls. It's talking to coaches. It's relationships. I talk to our guys all the time. "Hey, who do you guys know?" "Hey, coaches back home." I hit up coaches all the time. "Hey, I know you got a club that you're running. How many kids you got that are looking for somewhere to go, and how many would you recommend?" And just getting a lot of recommendations and building relationships. We've this past year broken to TWA here in Missouri, which is a really good club and thoroughbred. Yeah, a lot of the guys that we pulled from there have been, even if they're not going to start this year, they're hard workers. They're good for the team as far as just the attitudes they bring and the work ethic they bring, and just continue to build the culture more than anything. We want guys that want to work hard, that enjoy the sport, that just want to get after it. Whether they're the guy or not the guy, they're striving to be better than they were yesterday. Just want to have that daily improvement, match by match, day by day, practice by practice. And I even break it down simple enough. Our guys, like, even in their matches, like, hey, first period didn't go your way, throw it away. Second period's a new period. And just keeping it, trying to improve every aspect the entire time. And I think just we've had a really good group of guys that I did inherit. Those guys were foundational. You know, E.T. Rogers is still here helping out. Dylan Witt, I wish was still here helping out. And then that first class, we got lucky with some of the guys we got in that first class. Joel Campbell's here ranked 14th, hoping to do some damage for us. He's actually going to be changing weight classes here soon. And then Daryl Mills currently ranked 10th. And so it's like we had a little bit of luck with some of the first few guys we brought in, and they've been foundational pieces for us. And just now building on that. And just those guys set the tone, and now everybody we bring in kind of matches that energy, and they follow that. So.
Yeah, so if kind of talk about a little bit more about those guys, like that. Those are kind of the people who are the face of your program right now. Joel Campbell, Daryl Mills, and now talk about those guys, but talk about how they do foster that culture that you strive for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's my first recruiting class, so this is year 4 for me and them. We're going into this season, and those guys will tell you from day one to what we have now. Unbelievable difference, and they're excited about the growth of the team, and they're excited that they were the first guys to kind of like pioneer, like, hey, we're buying in, coach, we get it. The team's not good right now, but we're going to do something with it. And them buying in has helped other guys to buy in. And I think the first part's buy-in. You got to get buy-in. Them buying in and committing to it. They train hard, they eat right, they lift right, they don't skip things. When they do, they make it up. And then they demand that from the other athletes. Hey, I'm doing this. Look at the results I'm having. This is just what it takes. This isn't me being a try-hard. This isn't me just going above and beyond because I want coach's favor. This is to succeed in this sport. This is just what it takes. And they show that on and off the mat. Their grades are solid. Daryl's getting 2-3 workouts in a day. That kid comes in the morning, gets a lift in, and gets a nice little roll with some guys after our lift before he goes to practice. And then Joel, navigating a little bit of an injury, kind of tweaked his elbow. So he hasn't been able to go quite as hard, but same thing. That guy, when he hits the mat, whether he's ranked or unranked, which for the majority of his career is actually unranked, as good as he's been, he's a tough out for anybody. And he's kind of embodied showing some guys that aren't ranked, like, dang, I might not be the guy on paper. Maybe the other coaches aren't looking at me because it's a coach's poll, but that doesn't mean I can't go out there and scrap hard anyway. And he just kind of embodied just what hard work looks like, and continuing to get after it and continuing after it, and not letting a number next to a guy's name stop you from going out there and giving him your best shot. And finally, it's coming to fruition. Last year you picked up probably 10 to 15 ranked wins. This year, obviously, we're hoping to get started this weekend at Life in a new weight class and start making some noise and get, higher than 14 at 165 as opposed to 14th at 174, which is where he's, preseason poll, and after his first couple matches, that's where he was.
So what do you have against Missouri wrestlers? Your entire roster is Colorado guys, Idaho guys. Like, what is the deal, Caleb? Like,
yeah. So,
and I mean that in a good way. Like, obviously, you have these recruiting pipelines that you're pulling guys out of almost half of your roster seems to be from Colorado Springs, Colorado, which is an area that well. But I guess the heart of my question is, you have a national footprint pretty much, that you're sort of expanding into to pull guys in.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Because you don't like Missouri guys, so you look everywhere else.
Of course, I got Arkansas kid. I have a new recruit coming in next year from Georgia. We'll be on first Georgia boys. And so we do have guys from kind of all over the place. But obviously, Colorado's a home. Where I grew up. I know coaches there. I coached out there when I was done with my collegiate career. And then a lot of the guys I have on my team I actually coached against when they were in high school. From Abelino Moda, Sam Blackman, Jared Volsich, those guys I coached against and was hoping they'd lose for a lot of their career. Now I want them to win. So, and then just figuring out the connections in Missouri was a challenge at first, not to say it wasn't good, but coming in, there was a certain stigma for whatever reason around the program, and Missouri coaches didn't want to send their kids to Missouri Baptist. And you could put that blame on the school, on the previous coach, on whatever you want. I don't want to point fingers here, but that's just kind of what it was. It was hard to get those coaches, even though I was going out of my way to talk to them, to buy in on sending guys here. But you snag a few, then you snag a few. And I think last year we actually had a really good job getting a lot of pretty talented kids out of Missouri, out of St. Louis area. And they're having a good experience, and we're going to continue to grow that. Because obviously being a St. Louis school, you kind of need those local guys. You don't want to lose your local market to the Maryvilles, the McKendrees, the Missouri Valleys, or the Central Methodists, teams that we compete against in the heart. You want those guys, that local talent, being home, staying with you. And I think we've done a really good job of rebuilding that relationship. And, I mentioned Thurlborough, like getting into TWA and having those kids really feel like Mobap's one of their better options is huge. We haven't quite cracked the code at Perler yet, but those guys all think they're D1. So eventually when they're not going D1, hopefully instead of dropping down to a McKendree or a Maryville, they're dropping down to a Missouri Baptist. And that would be huge for us moving forward.
Yeah. So, a little more kind of broad. You're just over like maybe 10, 15% of your season. What have you kind of seen out of your guys early? We could get into the nitty gritty, but I'd much rather hear from you.
Yeah, the vets are the vets. And there's been some ugly matches that they've won, and then there's some really good performances they've done. And that's what veterans are supposed to do. And I think we have a really young squad. Of our 50, I think I did the math, like 28 or 29 of them are freshmen or sophomore. You're young. So your vets have to be that. They have to be kind of the staple. So when Daryl goes out there, we know we're getting good result. Even Bollinger, I'll give Bollinger a shout out, even though he had a really rough match against CMU. He's won some gritty matches that haven't been super pretty, but he just knows how to win. Whereas young guys, when matches get tough like that, a lot of times they kind of fold. So it's been nice to see the old heads kind of drive the culture the right way. But then we also have some young pieces that are just as tough. CJ Bauer, we were planning on redshirting, and now we're going to just let him loose. Because the kid, although he has a lot to grow as a wrestler still, a lot of room to kind of figure things out and technique-wise, he has that toughness you need to wrestle in college. And I think maybe it comes from his club and where he's from. Maybe it comes from what he's learned from our senior leadership and our older guys. But at the end of the day, he has that toughness factor that you have to have in college wrestling. You're going to win a lot of matches just being tough. And I think that's kind of what our culture is like, hey, I don't care if we're behind on the techniques. I don't care if we're behind on the accolades. I don't care if we're ranked or not. When we hit that mat, it's 7 minutes of physicality. We're coming out and we're bringing it. We're bringing the fight to them. And a lot of our guys kind of embody that. Ahmad Sufi, a good example of that. He kind of broke that guy from Central Methodist. And I think that CMU kid might even be a better on-paper wrestler than Ahmad is. But Ahmad is physical. He's violent. He's looking to score points. He's looking to put the pace on guys. And that's at a heavyweight, a guy that doesn't normally push the pace on people. And Ahmad does that for us. And just kind of continuing to build that culture, I think, is why we're having the success that we're having as a team. We go to tournaments. It's getting later in the day. You're talking match 5, match 6. A lot of kids are ready to go home. They're like, cool, what's for dinner tonight? Whereas I think our team is doing a really good job as the tournament gets long, staying like, I'm going to go get this next one. I'm going to go get this takedown. I'm going to go get the next set of points. I'm going to win this match. And I think that's helped us a ton in just being, ranked for the first time in 5 or 6 years or whatever it's been. So I think it's just having a mental toughness and just continue to build an environment and a culture around just being physically tough, mentally tough.
We do appreciate the time, and we always end all of these coaches' interviews on the podcast the same way. And you can take a minute to think about it. But if you were not a head coach here at Missouri Baptist or coaching wrestling at all, what would you be doing with your life right now? What's the other thing that you could be doing with your, what do you think you'd be doing? Because I mean, like, you have you didn't go straight from, college, Hannibal, and come here. You've had some interesting jobs along the way as well. But what do you think you would be doing with your life right now if you weren't coaching wrestling?
Yeah, it's a crazy question. I mean, from graduating college, I worked construction for 3 years.
Right.
Ran backhoes and mini X's and skid loaders, and I did a lot of stuff in that field. But I actually gave all that up to come to Missouri Baptist to be a graduate assistant and get my degree in sports management. And to be honest, it was kind of, I didn't really have a game plan other than I can't dig holes for life. I just can't do this. It hurts. My body's tired. I was working 5-10s on average, sometimes more, picking up 60-hour work weeks. And I need to do something that's just going to be better for me. So my goal initially was, when I came here to get a degree, was either working in sports information somewhere or to be like a high school, maybe even a middle school athletic director. So stay in sports, but in a different world. And then when the opportunity to coach came, it's like, oh, this makes sense. This is easy. So let's just do this.
Awesome. Still didn't answer the question, though. But what would you be doing with your life?
I assume I'd be an athletic director somewhere or work in sports information somewhere. I assume just working in sports to some world, because again, when I wasn't working in sports, it wasn't the best experience of my life. So
All right, well, that's Caleb McElfresh. He is the head men's wrestling coach here at Missouri Baptist. Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty. We'll be back in a minute on the Spartan Up Podcast. Welcome back to wrap things up here on the Spartan Up Podcast. And this is the portion of the show that we talk about what we are most excited about this week in MBU athletics. And Jackson, what do you think?
Oh, that's
It should be easy.
you would think so, right? I obviously the slam dunk answer would be the opening round, but I'm actually excited for some basketball. I don't know what it was, but I got the itch after watching us beat Clark in both the men's and women's. So I'm excited for tomorrow night. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
I knew you were going to take one, so I'll take the other. Women's volleyball, obviously in the opening round of the NAIA tournament against Dillard on Saturday night at 6 o'clock. Doesn't get much more exciting about that, but honorable mention to men's and women's basketball because, women's basketball coming off the win over Clark and men's basketball still undefeated on the year at 5-0. Culver Stockton tomorrow night on Wednesday and then Grandview on Saturday for both of those programs. So just a programming note, we will not have a podcast next week because Jackson wants to go home or something. I don't know. So is this correct? You are going back home, right?
I will be going back home on Wednesday.
Okay.
So
Next Wednesday?
next one.
Oh, we can do a show. Come on, man.
Maybe.
No, we're not going to do a show. I'm calling it now. We're not going to do a show. So we will we'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for listening in, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks on the Spartan Up Podcast.